Hello there. Welcome to the PacketTracer Skills Integration Challenge for Net 125's Chapter 7. It's labeled in the course materials Challenge 7.4.1.2. So let's take a look at it. Some of the things that you're going to be tested on or assessed will be relating to IP version 6. So this is maybe a topic that's a little bit new to many of you. So we'll try to give you some advice, guidance, and some hints along the way for finishing this challenge successfully. We have a small topology broken up into two subnets. Much of the addressing information is given to us. We are instructed in the first requirement to complete the addressing table documentation. I've done that in a separate Microsoft Word file. And we see the only things that we need to really come up with are over here in the lower right, the default gateways for both version 4 and version 6 addressing schemes. So just remember that the default gateway for any particular end device is that closest router interface that will get that device out beyond its local network. So Manager A laptop that has a network interface card address of 172.16.10.3 and the network mask, as we see, is going to get out beyond its local interface by connecting in through R1's G00 interface. So that is 172.16.10.1, and that is exactly what we put in the table for the default gateway. So you're going to see that that pattern carries down all through the table, both for the IP version 4, and you'll also see that the IPv6 address is consistent with that G00. For Manager B, its NIC is 172.16.10.67, and for it to go out beyond its local LAN, it will connect to router 1's G01 interface, which is at 172.16.10.65, and that is exactly what I put into the default gateway column of the table. The IPv6 default gateway is the version 6 address, again, of that G01 interface. So that pattern follows through, and I'm sure you'll be able to replicate that yourself. Now, let's look at the next requirement. We need to configure R1 with both IPv4 and IPv6 addressing information. Let's open up router 1. We'll look at the command line interface. We haven't been asked to put any special passwords in this particular challenge, but you know that in the real world, you would want passwords both for the initial login and for your enable password. We're going to go into global configuration mode, and now we need to take a look at those interfaces for the proper addressing. So interface G00 is going to have the 172.16.10.1 address. So let's do IP address, and we will put in that address, and then that net mask is going to be something that we just transcribe from the table, 255.255.255.192. Oh, what did I do wrong? Come on, who knows? I didn't go into interface mode. So I need to specify the interface for which I want to put that IP address on. So what interface did I just say? Interface G00. Now I can go type that IP address, 16.10.1, and the net mask, 192. Since we need to put in an IPv4 and an IPv6 address, we can do that right now. So it's IPv6 address. And what is the IPv6 address? We learned from the chapter that in the IPv6 world, we use the slash notation rather than a separate net mask. So all in really one character string, we've defined both the address and its mask. Now we have both of those address on the G00 interface. We need to bring the interface up. In Cisco lingo, that's no shutdown. We'll get the feedback that the link has changed and its state has changed to up. Now we need to do the same thing for the second interface on the router. So that is the G01 interface. Let's go back to configuration, int G01, and the IP address for that interface is 172.16.10.65. The same mask of 255.255.255.192. We need to put on an IP version 6 address as well, and we can get that from the table. I'm streamlining the process by cutting and pasting. Remember, you're not always going to be able to do that. Sometimes you just have to type it in. And no shutdown to bring that interface state to up. Now we need to configure the switch S1 with its IP version 4 addressing. And we're given this hint, S2 is already configured. Well, why do you think that the Cisco lab creators told us that? They probably thought maybe you might want to look at switch S2 and just see what's there. How has it been configured? Let's take a look. We can look at the running config and see that there are some interfaces configured with the switch mode access, but we have the VLAN 1 with a switch virtual interface address on it. And we have the IP default gateway address so that the switch knows how to get out to the networks beyond. So this same model can be used for switch 1. Let's do it. Switch 1. Enable and configure. And what do we need to do? We need to go to the interface VLAN 1. And what is switch 1's VLAN 1? It is a 172.16.10.62 IP address, 172.16.10.62 with a net mask of 255.255.255.192 and no shutdown. And what was the second thing we had to do? We had to define the IP default gateway. And what is that default gateway for the S1 switch? It's right over here in the table. 172.16.10.1. And that should suffice for that portion of the assignment. Now we need to configure Manager A with both its IPv4 and IPv6 addressing. And we can see the rest of the clients are already configured. Again, that might be a hint that we may want to look at some of those other devices. Let's look at Manager B. What do we see regarding its configuration? We see that the IPv4 address is defined as we see it in the table, and the net mask is what we see in the table. The default gateway is the third column in the table. There is a DNS server configured. That's not in the table, but we can see that it is the IP address of the website server. So we can keep that in mind. And the IPv6 address, we can find it from the table. We can see, though, that it is split into two portions in the input panel. Let's refer to some of our reading to noodle out what the remainder of these three items should be. One thing that we find in the reading is that the IPv6 link local addresses are on the FE80::/10 range, and that typically it is the link local address of the router and not the global unicast address that's used as the default gateway for other devices on the link. So here we have the IPv6 gateway and FE80::1. Well, that happens to be the link local address of the R1 router. So that is perfectly consistent what we find in our reading, that it is the link local address of the router that is used as the default gateway for the other devices in the link. So that explains the default gateway configuration. The IPv6 DNS server looks to me like it is the IPv6 address of the website.pka server. So just as its IPv4 address was used for the version 4 DNS server, its IPv6 address is used without the /64 mask at the end. Okay. So now the last little piece of the puzzle is, how do we find this link local address? Okay. You will see that the link local address is always in the FE80 range, with the last portion either calculated using something called EUI64, or it possibly is done with SLAC, stateless address auto configuration. And this is a system where devices get their prefix length, etc., from the IPv6 router. And it is actually what's called an RA message that gets sent out every 200 seconds, I believe, via ICMP v6 message from the router. And the device may also send out what's called an RS, or route solicitation layer 2 request to the router. But in order for this ICMP, RA, and RS messages to flow, the router must be configured to generate stateless address autoconfig. And we'll take a look at how to do that, well, probably right now. But let's first fill in the IPv6 address, the IPv6 gateway, and the IPv6 DNS server information for Manager A. And the IPv4 information as well appears. So Manager A is going to have 172.16.10.3 as its IP address. Its subnet mask, the default as it's filled in is not what we want, so we will change that to 255.192. The default gateway is going to be 172.16. Let's just check it out. 10.1. What's to do all at once? Let's do 16.10.1. And the DNS server that we learned from looking at the manager B is the address of the website.pka, which we can just cut and paste in here. Okay. And then the IPv6 address, again, we can get that from the table. So that will be 201 db8 CAFE 1::3. And remember that the 64 has to go out here to the right. We will go down to the default gateway, which is going to be the FE80::1. Because why? Because it is the link local address of the router that is used as the default gateway for other devices on the link. Okay. And then the IPv6 DNS server is going to be the website.pka address. So let's just check at this point in time. Back to our list of requirements. We can see that we've configured most of Manager A with IPv4 and IPv6 addressing, and we will eventually need to ping. We can see, if we slide over here a little bit, that our completion rate is 74 out of 80. Remember, you can hit check results and take a look at the assessment items and learn where you might be falling short. And it is exactly as we expect, that the link local has not yet been configured for those devices. So we can close that back out again, slide our table back. Let's go to our router, and from global configuration mode, we should be able to set up unicast routing for V6, configure that link local address on the router interfaces. So that would be interface G0/0 and interface G0/1. You can see that I've already typed in the command for the 0/0 interface, and now I'll go into interface configuration mode for G01. It's IPv6 address. And where did I get the FE80::1 information? That again was from our addressing table. The same link local applied to both interfaces. And I can check back. My completion rate is now 80 out of 80. Try pinging. Our website.pka server has an IP address of 172.16.10.66. We'll ping over to that. Remember, sometimes your first ping, you don't get 100% transmission, but try it again. And we have 4 packets sent and 4 received. So we are good. Of course, you should try every device to every other device to make sure that your connectivity is perfect. Hope this helped, and happy configuring.